Morning, everybody, and welcome. It's 11 o'clock, and I can't believe January is like running away from me. Welcome to 2023. I'm excited to get back on our webinar Wednesday professional development series. We do these monthly. We kind of took a break in the fall and over the summer, so excited to kind of get back on track this year, and so excited to see so many people on this morning. And I'm really excited about our topic today because it's something that has been in the works for like several years now. And some of you probably don't know that, but it has been. And so today we're going to be talking about the reorganization of our 4-H project areas and how we have restructured kind of the project guide, the project exhibits in the fair book, 4-H online, and just a kind of an overhaul that it's been a work in progress. And when I say it's been a work in progress, it really has. It's taken a lot of feedback, a whole team to get this done. And I really want to say thank you so much to Sue Milner and Caroline Homan and their groups have been working on this. They are rock stars because this would not have happened without them, because they really just charged us forward and been the champions of this. So I just want to say thank you and appreciate them so much and everything they've done and continue to do and all the hours that they have put into this. And just a little commercial for next week, for our February webinar Wednesday. We will be having one next week on Wednesday the 1st. I know that's kind of quick, but we've been asked to do a webinar on how to submit a proposal and awards applications for NAE 4-H YDP, our association. We were in the conference in Madison this past October. And so we all have fantastic programs that you're doing out there and things that you've done that could be submitted for awards. And so we need to get those submitted. So Sue, Kwame, and I are going to be leading that next week, Wednesday, the same time at 11. And I'll send out an email today on that. But the reason it's so quick is the proposals are actually due the 13th of February. So be thinking about some ideas about a program that you have, and Sue and I will help you put that together because we've gotten a few accepted. So we kind of know how to do it. Now we're not like total experts, but we can help you with that. And we want people to submit for awards. So that's going to be next week's topic. So watch for an email later today about that. And I'll circle back to that at the end today for people that are jumping on towards the end or not at the very beginning of this. So before we go any further, I'm going to turn it over to Sue Milner. She is an FCW agent in Barnes County, and she is fabulous. And so I'm excited to have her present today.
Thanks, Megan. Well, welcome everybody. I am really excited to be here. You've been getting bits and pieces of this project, and let me start from the beginning. Caroline and I visited quite often when she was in the war, and we became really frustrated with the state fair book and the project guide and 4-H online and how the language was different across all the platforms and all the confusion that it caused. For maybe it was just us. I doubt it, but I'm going to throw that out there for everybody involved, including families. And so I am so thankful that we could meet with Megan and Leanne. They both came out to Valley City separate times. We sat at a coffee shop. We talked about the book, and it came back as, you know what, let's take a deeper dive in it. So they really listened to us. They heard our frustrations and what we were saying. And then they said, you know what, take a deeper dive in it and see what you can find out. So this is where we landed. Today, what I want to do is give you an overview of the project and the deliverables. I want to explain where we are to date. And then I want us to go into the website and to go into the documents and do a real hands-on look at how these documents are meant to be used and how you'll be able to use them in your communities and offices. So just to get started, I want to tell you about the overview. I said that it literally has been, I think it's been 3 or 4 years, Megan, that we met in that coffee shop, and the project just expanded. We had a pretty simple goal. We just wanted to have the language the same across all the platforms. So if we had wind in 4-H online, we wanted wind listed in the other 2 documents as well as our project sheets. And if we were going to call beekeeping, that's great, but then let's not call it apiary in the state fair book. So we just simply wanted the language the same. But when the rubber met the road, we had to decide which language we were going to use, which opened up a whole new can of worms. And so we chose the National 4-H curriculum. Right or wrong, we had to start somewhere, but that was years after kind of getting started and diving deep into the language itself. So that was the simple project. We simply wanted to take the nomenclature and the format from all the documents and align them so the language was the same. And the reason we wanted to do that was to reduce any ambiguities across all those documents. We wanted our language to be clear. We wanted our language to be consistent across the documents so that it would be user-friendly for everybody involved in state 4-H. We wanted to reduce any confusion we had about where exhibits should land. And I believe, and Caroline believes, and Megan and Leanne do too, that if we standardize that language, we would have a stronger 4-H, we would have a 4-H program with a higher integrity. We'll be able to manage as well as increase our numbers because there will be less frustration with ambiguities. So I think that these documents are really going to set us up for success. And that's what we want. We want to set up our support staff for success, other agents for success, as well as our families and kids. So just to reiterate, the main goal of the project was to align the language and the formatting across the State Fair book, the project guide, 4-H online, and the project sheets along with the website. That was the ultimate goal, and we still maintain that goal with the reasoning to reduce frustration, confusion, and questions among everybody involved. So once again, I said that the language was very diverse across all those documents, and we did a deep dive into what language we should use. And like I mentioned, right or wrong, we chose the National 4-H curriculum definitions, which are used in the ES 237. So after taking a really good look at the project guide and the project sheets, we decided to flip those on their head, which means that that guide is no longer a guide for people to order literature material out of. It is a guide for people to use and 4-Hers to use, parents to use, and us to use to really understand what that project area, as well as different projects, are within the area that kids can study with the goal the entire year. So that was the goal. And we added definitions to the project guide. So that's really the main philosophy of the project guide and how it has flipped. It's not a literature guide any longer. It is meant to guide the 4-Her to know and to understand what project they're choosing. And I think that's exciting. I hope that that will eliminate some questions on the back end when people come to us and say, oh my goodness, you know, I studied Mexico in school and I want to add that project area. Where can it go? And we can look through those definitions and identify exactly where that should go. So I really liked that idea. We took those definitions and we moved them forward into the State Fair book. So when we take a look later today on the State Fair book, you will also see those definitions in the State Fair book, which will be nice because the State Fair book could be a standalone document. And I like that fact as well. I'm going to catch up with my notes so I don't miss anything. So the project guide is going to be a pretty static document, which means that we need to find a place for the literature. And what I've experienced is that literature comes and goes. Links are live one day and aren't live the next day. Curriculum gets more expensive or is discontinued, or there might be program teams that want to offer different programs. So the project sheets are really the living document. So the project guide and State Fair book are more static, but the project sheets are a living document, which means that the program teams you've already met, and thank you so much, because some of you had to do a lot of work even making new project sheets. But the project sheets are meant to be living, which means that the program teams are going to have to keep an eye on those and make sure that the links are live and that our families can go to those sheets, click on something or order something and know what they are going to be getting. So just a heads up on that, program teams. Megan is going to be talking at a later date about the process for getting the information from the program teams and the changes and the edits to those project sheets into the website. Am I wrong, Megan? Or
Right. So I plan to talk to our program planning committee chairs, for each program planning team chairs about more logistics of how to get those project sheets updated and the process we're going to go through with that. We kind of discussed it in December at our meeting, but I think we all need more direction.
Yep. So Megan's going to be doing an orientation, so you'll feel very comfortable when you go through your project sheets, when you make edits, where those edits go, and also how you'll know that the latest project sheet is on the website. So that's a process in progress, so to speak. So support staff, if you notice something on the project sheets or the website that needs updating, or maybe there's a gap in curriculum that you've been asked about, let the agent in your office know, and that agent will be able to reach out to the program team lead and express their concern or question. And then the program team lead can take it to the program. And then, as I mentioned, Megan will be able to describe the process of getting those edits into the project sheets and post it on the website. So we're all in this together. So at this point, are there any questions about what we did, the philosophy, or why we did this? Anything that I can answer right now before we move into where we're at to date?
Feel free just to open your mic and ask Sue, or you can put it in the chat box as well. So any questions that you have so far, please ask.
Yeah, and I really want to say, this is not an us and a them, like, oh, they made these decisions and they printed it like this and this is wrong. We all are coming to the table to discuss this and to make it the best we can be. You might not agree with the decisions and how we've done it so far. And that's okay to agree to disagree, but we're all in this together. So there really isn't a we and a they. It's we're working together. So if you have anything that you want to say right now, comments, concerns, questions about the overall project goals and the why of those project goals.
Sue, thank you for you and your team in doing this. I think this is going to be great, and it's not set in stone, right? Like you just said, we can change things along the way as needed, and I think that's great. So thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, once again, let's always go back to that main goal of making it user-friendly and supporting everybody in 4-H. That's the ultimate goal, and we thought the best way to do that would be align the language. So Dina just asked for the link to the project guide, and Megan put the link in the book, in the chat, but we're also going to be walking through exactly where to find that, because in the past week or so, it's been really hard to just search it. It hasn't come up. So we contacted Holly and she was going to work on that, but I want you to be able to find it simply through the website as well. So moving on, let's talk about where we're at. You guys did a darn good job at program planning team meeting in November. Thank you. Thank you for that. So the State Fair book draft is done. What we're doing now is doing one last peek. So we're sending it out to the program team leads We're sending it out to the specialists. There's going to be a fairly short turnaround. They're going to turn it back into Caroline and she's going to tweak it. So yay, I think we're there. We are there. One note is we have not worked on the live animal side. We have not worked on the instructions for 4-H. Our goal was simply the static side, but that means that the animal side is going to be looked at. No panicking. We are not going to be adding a llama show this year. We're going to be gauging interest on that as well as the other animals that we've added, and they'll be added at a later date. Right now, we need to just change the headings. For example, in animals, on the static side, we have cattle, beef, cattle, dairy. So those titles will be changed on the live animal side to match the static side. So just know that that piece is going to be worked on before it goes to print. So I'm excited. We're not too far off our goal. And with these small edits, I think we're going to be able to get this to you very, very soon. Now, that said, remember we started with the project guide in 4-H online, and then we moved to the state fair book. We made changes in the state fair book, which means now we have to work backwards. So the changes that we made in the state fair book are being changed in the project guide and are being changed in 4-H online. So now we're working backwards. You're going to notice that soon you will receive an email saying that the project guide has now been updated. And what I'd like to see is something really like bold, maybe a different color on the new version, or maybe a big new date or updated, so that you know, besides that email when it's posted, that yep, this is the new project guide. But you will be receiving an email as well saying it is posted. So we should all be in the know on that. As far as the 4-H online, I'm going to show you what we're proposing. And Holly did say this is possible. So based on your feedback, thank you so much. We're going to be changing 4-H online to include all of the different projects that were in the parentheses. And don't worry, I'm going to explain this. But for those of you that are wondering and have asked that question, 4-H online will now include those projects in the parentheses. Yay. So I'm going to show you that. So just hold on. I wanted to give you a heads up for those that have asked about that as well. That said, I'm cringing because we're gonna create a little bit of havoc for you. And I want to apologize. If I would have known ahead of time that 4-H online would be changed, you know, we would have held off, but we didn't know that. So with the change to 4-H online, sorry, I think this might land on you, support staff. You may have to go back and ask your families to re-enroll in some areas. I'm not exactly even sure what that havoc is going to be, but I can just imagine in my own mind that there will be problems, there will be concerns, there will be frustration. So just let's try to be really patient. Don't send me really nasty notes on this one. I promise next year we've got a really good handle on this, and it shouldn't, I'm not going to say it won't, but it shouldn't happen. Parents and families should be able to enroll right off the bat and not have to have any havoc. So once again, I so apologize, and I appreciate your time and energy, but we just didn't know that this was going to happen. So again, patience. And if you find out a really good system that we don't know about that will streamline the changeover, please share that with everybody. I know that everyone would really appreciate your input. Tori, that might land on you because you're like the 4-H online expert in the field, I think. Are there any questions about where we are with the state fair book? That's in draft. That's going to the program team leads for one final look, specialists for one final look, and then the live animal and contest side will be added. The project guide will be updated based on the new state fair book, and 4-H Online, which I'll show you in a minute, will be updated as well. Any questions, comments, concerns about those pieces?
Sue, just when are you estimating the fair book to be ready?
Well, that's a good question. Our turnaround time is really short. If you're the program lead, which you are, Jeff, you're going to be getting an email very shortly with a turnaround time of really just a couple of days. That said, we all know that glitches happen. So if I tell you a date and say, you know what, dang it, yep, we're going to get all of these documents printed like by January 31st, like that was our goal, I will probably fall flat on my face. That said, you will get it sooner than you have in the past. I will go out on a limb and promise that. Can I do that, Megan, you think?
Yeah, Jeff, like some things are out of our hands. And so like Sue mentioned, you'll be getting an email from Caroline asking you to look over some things, but then, it has to go to AgCom. We can't tell you how fast they will be done. And then it's not printed by us. It goes off to the state fair to be printed. So Diane and I visited yesterday, and we can't really give you an exact date because there's a lot of moving parts to consider. So, but we're way ahead than we were last year.
Okay, so Julianne raised her hand. Can you unmute, Julianne?
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying,
Okay.
because Tori is not here today. And so we may have to ask some families to re-enroll in some project areas. And is that my understanding? It's a result of the state fair book changing. So now we have to kind of reverse engineer.
Yeah, you know what? That's a really good question. So it really didn't have anything to do with the state fair book, but it did have something to do with how the projects were laid out in 4-H online, as well as page 5 of the guide. Can we hold off on that? And I will show you exactly what I'm talking about when I share my screen. Thanks.
Yes, thanks.
And we also have one more comment, just an FYI to counties who will have their families change their project areas. I don't think the families are able to add project areas once initial registration has taken place. I believe staff has to do it. If I'm wrong, let me know. And Lynette Vockel replied, oh, she's got a new comment. So let's in the chat, if you think that there's some way for families to be able to go back in and add project areas, let us know. And then also, will it be sent to agents before finalized? As sometimes agents or administrative assistants see things that even the program leads or specialists may miss. That is a good point. I believe that is up to the program team leads. So Caroline's going to send it out to the program team leads, who will be able to reach out to their program team to review it. It's not the whole state fair book. It is simply your section. So it shouldn't take much time, even if that's emailed out and you guys can make comments in that section. As far as the support staff, I think that's an awesome idea. I know I reached out to Kim and some other support staff across the state and to get feedback for this first draft. And I tell you, it was awesome. We added things. And so please reach out to your support staff, send this to your support staff as well. Program team leads, as well as those on the program, maybe do a staff meeting where you review it line by line by line and make sure that there are absolutely no ambiguities. We don't want, if you have a question about what does this mean, guaranteed there's going to be a family that's going to have that same question. So when we went through the state fair book, we literally took it sentence by sentence and asked the question, what does this mean? What does this word mean? How many do they exhibit? How long should this shaft be? I mean, we really did a deep dive into each sentence. So we'd like you guys to do the same. We don't want to miss anything. There's some other comments in the chat. How do you want to handle that, Megan?
I see one says, when will 4-H online be changed? I think we should wait until all this is finalized too. Like, we have the fair book, and then Susan also talk about the project guide. So pretty soon that also involves Holly going in there to change it. So when that's changed, we can let you know as well. Let's see. You're saying families can change project areas, and Lindsay said to set an automated dates. Okay. I think that's all. People were just commenting about how they have certain date sets. I don't
Okay,
think
awesome.
hands right. Okay, thanks, Sue.
Great. Okay, so what I'd like to do now that we've gone over the overview and we've talked about where we are to date with those documents, I want to do this as a hands-on piece, and I'm going to show you where things are. And if you've got two screens and you can follow along, that would be fantastic. The first screen we're going to go to is the website. So if you've got two monitors, pull up the website on one and you can follow along on the other. I'm going to share my screen, so no one get dizzy, please. Okay, so you should be seeing the website, and I'm going to be rest assured that everyone knows how to get to the website. I simply Google it, NDSU extension, and it's bookmarked. So this is the page. Please, Danielle, you're first on my screen. If you're confused or I'm not explaining it, can you please give me the high sign? Awesome, thanks. Okay, so you're going to be seeing this, and we're simply going to go to extension topics. And we're going to bring our cursor down to 4-H youth development. Okay, now we're going to scroll down to the middle of the page, and on the left-hand side, you are going to see member and volunteer resources sites. I want you to click on that. That's going to bring us to another page housed in the website, and it's going to look like this. But there's more to this page. We need to scroll down a bit until you see projects, which is on the left-hand side. Once you click on projects, it's going to take us now to the Google Drive. You are now in the projects folder of the Google Drive. From here, the project guide is in this folder. It's way at the bottom, and it's this PA 800. Are we there? Danielle, can you give me a thumbs up? Okay. I'm going to click on that. And voila, here is the project guide. Danielle, can you do me a favor and go to your other screen and just Google 2223 NDSU 4-H project guide, or something that's a really common Google search, and see if you can get it that way. I just want to find out. While she's doing that, we're going to scroll through this. This is, of course, the cover page. And then if you go to page 2, you're going to see kind of our disclaimer, so to speak, of the new philosophy. And that's really at the top. It's in this red piece. And it says, for families that have been around 25 years, that this is not the literature guide any longer. This is a definition guide. What we did is we added some definitions, and Caroline and I did this because we debated and debated and debated between ourselves. We asked our spouses, we asked our colleagues, we asked 4-Hers that have been around forever. What's a project area? What's a project? What's an exhibit? Where do you find the project sheets? And what's the difference between fair entry and 4-H online? And we had so many people scratch their heads. What's a group? What's a class? They used to be lots. All of those things that have evolved or changed, or our jargon that only we know, we thought we needed to have a definition. So this first page here is definitions for people. And the next page is some real interesting pieces that we just transferred over from the older copies of the project guide, which includes the cost of materials, the step to enroll, and then the bottom piece on that left side is expectations for 4-H club members. And maybe your counties are much more strict. Mine is really loose. So this was really good to leave in and point out for our families. We're going to be bringing that piece forward at some leader council meetings as well. The next piece is about record keeping. And I'm telling you, that's That's for phase 10 of this project. But if somebody out there wants to take on record keeping, more power to you, because it does need to be updated. The next page is just the same as it was in the other books. I am going to skip over this project index because this is your Bible to 4-H Online, to the State Fair book, and to the project guide. So bear with me, I'm going to skip over that. We're going to go to the individual project descriptions, which take over the majority of the project guide. You can see here that we've got animal science project area. That's the entire area. And then there are projects that kids can choose from to learn throughout the entire year. And they can look at this and say, gosh, what do I want to do? Oh my, this is a new project area. We have the cat project area now. We have the cattle dairy project area. We've got, a small animals pocket pet project. What does that all include? Oh my goodness, it includes lab animals and small birds. So you'll be able as an agent to look at that when they come in with their little parakeet and say, where do I put this? Let's look at the project book or the guide and see. Based on the definition, it fits here absolutely perfectly. Remember that Mexico study example I gave you before? And it used to go in education, and then we dropped the education group, and then we brought it back for those of you who have been around a while. We have added a global and cultural education project. So you'll be able to just read the definition about, this is knowledge and skills related to global and cultural competency. That's a perfect place for that 5th grade social studies project where they're learning about Mexico, or maybe someone has done ancestry or DNA or done a family tree. This is the perfect place for that. So you can see that we've added some new project areas, and then we've expanded them to combine or to have the definition there. Some we've combined, and you'll see that throughout as you review this on your own. For the communication and expressive arts, we divided that up and we put communication arts project here. So now they can write a poem and submit that. For performing arts, they might be able to write a song and put it here. The visual arts projects, you'll notice that they're clumped together. So we don't have an arts and crafts entirely separate area. It's now under the visual arts project. But if you look at the definition, we've got all those different areas listed under that. And one of the reasons we did this after visiting with a lot of people is Pinterest. And sometimes an art project is not a year-long study. So instead of having it its own project, we wanted to simply minimize that a bit and let them study arts and crafts overall and maybe pick certain areas to exhibit. So that was intentional. I'm going to let you go through on your own, but you'll be able to see forests, rangeland, and wildlife projects. And as we transition to the State Fair book, these become groups. So that is the project guide. And I said I would go back to page 5. So for those following along on their other monitor, go back to page 5. For the rest of you, don't get dizzy. I'm going to scroll back to page 5.
Hey, Sue, we have a question in the box. It says,
Great.
What are you defining as lab animals?
Oh, that's a good question. So do we need a definition for lab animals? I would say anybody on the animal science team, if you could research that, and you may want to add a definition. Since we had a question here, it might be worthy of discussion.
And see, I always considered animal as kind of like rats and mice. Those are usually, because we already have rabbits, and that's another one of those typical lab animals are rats, mice, and rabbits.
Good point.
I would say rats and mice be classified as lab animal.
Are you on the animal science team, Rebecca?
No, but that's my 5 cents to add to the animal science team.
Okay.
Five pennies worth.
Is someone on here that's on the animal science team?
I am.
Awesome. So Monica, you can bring that forth.
Yeah, hold on. I was on a call when that one happened. Which category?
This piece
Oh,
right
this one.
here.
Okay, so I did pretty much all of the project sheets for animal science, well, half of them. And I did the pocket pet one. And I included like the gerbils and hamsters and mice. I didn't really write anything about lab animals, should I?
Well, Rebecca's bringing up a question because she says traditionally rabbits are also considered a lab animal. So maybe we need something in here that includes, lab animals, mice, comma, rats, and then an extra small birds.
Yeah, I just put like all of the small animals. So yeah, like the sugar gliders and the guinea pigs and the.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you could almost say, like accepted but not limited to, and then list like, hamsters, mice, rats, small birds, etc. Because then like the rabbits would go in the rabbit category, but then like, then it would be like all those other small animals, like when we think of small animal care, like concepts. Does that make sense? That's what I was thinking, I guess. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, so what you're saying then is also includes lab animals except rabbits and extra small birds?
I would almost just leave it like, like I had mentioned, like accepted, not limited to, and just take out the lab animals. I think that kind of sometimes confuses people. But if you say like limited to, and then, or accepted, not limited to, but hamsters, mice, rats, small birds, because the rabbits I would think would go in the other category, in the rabbit category. I raised rabbits growing up and had, a whole bunch, but I was just wondering, I guess that's my 2 cents, but.
That's
So then it
awesome.
would the like specifics, and then if there was a question, like if it was a sugar glider, it would just be that etc. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we're really trying to limit the et ceteras because that opens up a whole new can of worms. So if we can be as specific and concise as possible when you're looking this over.
Yeah,
so now remember, we are starting, project leads and the project teams and support staff who look over that area, you're going to get the state fair book, because the definitions in the state fair book are going to be moved over kind of backwards to the project guide. So I'm showing you the project guide right now. You're going to get the state fair book to look at.
Okay, that makes sense.
So we're going to go back to page 5. This I said is your Bible. What I've asked is that once this gets updated, that this becomes the project list. So in the Google Drive, I'm gonna go back out of this. Bear with me here. Actually, I'm gonna go back here.
Hey, Sue, we had another question.
Okay.
So Dina wanted to know, so we no longer ask that 4-H exhibits be items created specifically for 4-H. Are we encouraging them to bring school projects?
Mike, maybe that's a very good philosophical question. In my county, we allow school projects. Absolutely. When they're studying something in school and it's the global cultural project, when they're studying it over 5 weeks, and then they have a show where parents come and they've got almost a project expo board with displays. Yeah, we do encourage that, to use that for 4-H. Is that not our philosophy, Dina?
I'm old school, and at one time we had verbiage in the 4-H, it was in the project book or in the state fair exhibit list, but it specifically said projects displayed in the 4-H category should be made specifically for 4-H. Now, remember, I got Dean Ockery whispering in my ear all the time. It was 4-H is for 4-H. I know we like to be accepting of all, but I'm just asking because it used to be, if it's exhibited in 4-H, it should be made for 4-H.
That's interesting because in the static part of the 4-H, the state fair book, which we've looked at over and over and over again. And in the project guide from last year, I don't remember or recall seeing that language. So if it's something that we want to add, we, certainly can discuss that and add that. But I have not emphasized that in my county, nor have I seen it written as an expectation. But again, we certainly can look at that.
There have to be some people on this call. It looks like Mindy from Williams County has that memory also. Anybody else here want to speak up? I mean, it just was kind of ingrained.
This is Jeff Stockler, and I guess if Dean is going to call it old school, I agree that it's old school, and I know it's in Griggs County stuff that you can't show school projects in 4-H, that they have to be original projects for 4-H, and I think that's what we need to have. There, I don't see that we want them to double dip, so to speak.
I think it depends. I think that philosophy has changed over the years, depending on with the conference judging or interview judging. If those youth specifically have a plan for that for the year with their project areas, say they learned about photography in school in their photography class, if they're middle school or high school students, and then have a way that they're going to sit down and talk with a judge about that and about the skills that they've taken maybe from what they've learned in school and transferred it to some of their 4-H experience at the county level. I think there's been some shifting in thinking. And the reality is, speaking as a 4-H volunteer, I know our club members a lot of times do end up bringing projects to the fair they made in school, but they understand that they have to talk about how that fits into a project that they've already selected in their county. I don't know. So we maybe have to have that conversation as a program planning team, but we are just trying to more be as inclusive as possible and not put up barriers for our youth to be involved. So I'll just have you think about that.
Yeah, I just wanted to be sure that we are being somewhat consistent, because, some of us, that's kind of ingrained in your head, and we might be going against what's the expectation at the state.
That is true. If we go back to the expectations here, there is nothing that says you can't study something in school and transfer it over to your project in 4-H. So if that is going to be a state's expectation, we should probably add it so that it's consistent. And I actually have to agree with Rochelle, coming from a parent, and remember, I was a single parent for years, and I don't know with 4 kids if I could have had as much learning being done at home as I could have at school. And it would have created a barrier for my own family. Not to say that maybe I'm just an unusual duck, but at that point, we have a lot of single families or first generation 4-Hers as well. And a lot of that learning does go on in school. So I think it's a really great point to bring up. And like I said before, there isn't a right answer to most of this. We have to jump in with both feet and really dissect it and see what works at this time for the majority of our participants to make it user friendly. So thanks, Dina. That was an awesome point, and probably one that'll go higher up the chain of command than I am. I think that's a really good point.
I'm going to jump in there, and I love what Rochelle said. I was just skimming through our North Dakota 4-H policy, and there's nothing in there that states anything currently, like you guys are saying, that it has to be restricted to any certain thing, kind of like what Rochelle said. I mean, learning is encompassing anywhere and everywhere. I liked what somebody had put in the chat in terms of it has to be done within that given year. It can't be a project from 3 years ago that they exhibit. Even that actually isn't in the current NDSU policy. So something that I've noted for people to think about. I would love for you guys to email me and kind of let me know your thoughts on that. and just kind of see, like you're saying, if we could get a poll, send me an email, let me know your thoughts on that.
Thanks for that great discussion on that. We'll definitely be visiting that more. So thank you so much, Dina, for bringing that up. That's a very good point. There's, we had lots of good comments. So I want to make sure we get to Julianne. She's had her hand raised for a while. Julianne?
Thanks. I just wanted to revisit the lab animal definition, and I agree with others out there that lab animal, I don't think will be publicly perceived very well. We get all sorts of products that says you don't test it on lab animals, and now we're using them to show. So I would recommend that we reconsider using the words lab animal.
Thanks for that point, Julianne. That's really good. Thanks for sharing that. So I've written that down too, so we can make that adjustment as well. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, I think I've gotten all the questions so far, and I really appreciate all the comments towards the school project versus not school project. So
yeah, and I think that lends itself to a bigger discussion about consistency across the state with our expectations, especially when these exhibits are going to the state fair. If we're allowing an exhibit from a school project from my county and you aren't, Dina, it's really limiting maybe something that your 4-H'er would really like to show. So on either side, right, like I said, there's no right or wrong. I think a decision is whatever decision we make will be good. But I think that standardization is really important.
On the flip side, the approach has always been with some things that we want to allow you to have local control and limit the amount of rules. So, sometimes it depends on your space and depends on, but I think with all of the movement towards diversity, equity, and inclusion, we really do need to think about what kind of barriers are we putting up that keep youth from being involved. So, and the more rules, like as we're trying to keep the 4-H volunteer handbook to 25 pages, the more rules we put in there, or the more limitations, the harder it is for new people to become engaged in our program too.
Yeah, I really like the word expectations versus rules. I think expectations are a much more positive way of saying rules. So let's go back to page 5. Like I said, this is really your Bible. And the green with the page number are the project areas. Anything with a bullet is what the kids can sign up for in 4-H Online. That said, this is where we ran into issues, and I really appreciate people that brought this up, because I've had some people say, photography is not listed anymore. We've registered for photography for years. It's now at this point nested under visual arts. I want you to hold that thought because we have changed it. But right now, if you were to register in 4-H Online, you would have to use this page, find photography, go into 4-H Online and register under visual arts as your project. I'm going to give you one more example. A real common one is welding. We've got metalwork and welding nested under industrial technology. So if you had a kid or a 4-H or youth that wanted to register for welding and was like, they don't offer it anymore, can't find it. If they opened it up to page 5, they would see welding is nested under industrial technology, and that's how they would register. I want you to hold that thought, because when we change 4-H Online, that will change as well. But currently, that's how they would register. So with that, is there any other questions you have with the project guide, where to find it, or where the definitions are, page 5, the index, or the back part with all the definitions for the projects?
I do have one thing, Sue. I noticed on one of your definition pages, it has the ages or grades for clover buds and regular members. And I was just wondering if everyone else uses grades or if we're using ages, because I have a lot of kids who are like kindergarten through second grade, but they may be older than the second grade, so they're not a clover bud. So I've been using like ages 5 through 7. I'm just curious if that's what everyone does, or if you stick with your grades.
You know, I'll interject. This guide has not been updated. That wonderful comment was made during program planning team meeting in November and will be changed in the updated one.
Okay,
These will now, thank you, April. These are going to be switched over to ages.
perfect. Thank
So
you.
great, thanks.
Sue, I have a question regarding how awards are going to be given out with these projects being basically summarized into a group. So like, let's take welding and woodworking, for instance. In years past, like I know in our county, you've always had a separate award being for welding versus woodworking and not actually having to compete against each other on that type of thing. But at the state fair, is it just going to be one top awarded for this STEM project area?
For this right here?
Yeah. So like how are they going to do the awards? Like, is somebody, if they're entering a welding project and a woodworking project with some other kid, are they going to be competing for just one STEM award overall?
You know, that's a really good question. And I'm
Sue?
not sure. Go ahead.
If I can jump in.
That'd be awesome.
This is Diane. I would say the answer to that, Heidi, is no, they're not competing against each other, because when you think about, I'm looking at it from a state fair perspective. You have judges for woodworking and you have judges for welding. They're two different judges. They judge, one judges woodworking and one judges welding. They each can give you know, the awards in those categories. So there's not just one for all of those things.
So
Does
they're
that make
basically, well, I'm just trying to think here. So they're basically going to register under the same project area, but yet we'll still have separate awards when it comes to actually entering projects.
Yes, I mean, I'm thinking of them as two separate things. Now, people jump in, but I'm thinking about the project guide as areas where they're going to register for a project and a guide for where they can find those projects.
Okay.
And they're in a project area, but when they go to a county or state fair, they're still being judged not by that entire thing. So if you look at every one of those categories, there's not going to be just one award in those.
Okay. So
however
it'll
many.
get broke down into like those individual classes then for when they
Yes.
actually register onto like fair entry and all those kind of things.
Yes, they are. They have to
Okay.
enter in a specific class.
Okay.
So Heidi, you're giving me a great segue. Let's talk about 4-H Online. So I mentioned that was a bit of a problem, the nesting piece right here, this industrial technology and having that all nested under and being able to find it. And then someone mentioned, and rightly so, well, my goodness, how do we know how many kids have registered in bicycle and metalwork? And how do I know how many judges to get? And how are my trophies going to work? First of all, while I'm transferring this over, I want you to think about the pins, which from the national office are crazy anyway, but let me find my, here we go.
While you're looking for that, Sue, Diane, they have a question. Where does stuffed animals fit in the sewing project?
Okay,
Or
let's see.
Diane might know that, or Diane might know, being that this is getting updated, will the judges' scorecards for the exhibits be updated to match the scorecards?
So Tracy and Becky, yes, at program planning, the teams were tasked with updating judging cards for projects based on the new project book and all of that. So the answer is yes. Judging cards they're working on changing those and getting the standards in there for some of these new things.
So let's go on to the 4-H. I think this will really help. This is a piece I'm pretty excited about. So now it's going to look like a lot more projects, and it is. But what we did is, remember when we said, oh my goodness, the kids aren't going to know where to put photography. Now it will be listed. It'll be listed communications and expressive arts, visual arts, and then photography. So they'll see it. The same with welding, which are two that have come up a bazillion times. Let's see if I can, if you see it jump out. Let me see it. Here we go. Welding. And I'm guessing, Diane, that's how it will be in fair entry as well, correct?
Well, we haven't even begun to, reorganize that until this part gets done. So.
Right. So remember, we're working backwards. Now we have the state fair book and draft, then we'll change the project guide, and then we'll change 4-H online. But I think this is really going to help your parents. So that's, and kids, that's awesome. Moving on, I'm going to show you the new state fair book. Remember, our main goal was to reduce ambiguities, make sure that the language was exactly the same from the project book, make sure the titles and the projects were the same as in 4-H online, and then minimize wording, like make it as simple as we could to read. So you're going to see the 4-H static exhibits general guidelines. We simplified them. There are only 9. And then I'm just going to show you the animal science project area. This definition is exactly what you would see in the project guide. Then we kept the word class, and then we kept the class number and the exhibit information. So if we go to Division 20, which is the new project area, alpacas and llamas, here is our definition. So it could be a standalone document. And then here's the class. Here is the class for age 8 to 12. Minimal wording, hopefully easy to read, very straightforward. I'm going to go to something just a bit more difficult. I'm going to go to photography, because that one is very popular and it can be difficult. I'm going to make my screen bigger. It can be more cumbersome. So when we look at our visual arts, bear with me, I'm going to scroll up to our project area. Here's our big main project area, communication and expressive arts project area. Here are the different projects. Here's Division 50, communication arts. And then underneath it are our groups. And if I could split my screen, you'd see that it matches with 4-H online, and it also matches with the project guide. So you can see we've got the division, and then we have the groups, and then we have the classes below. Now I'm going to scroll down to photography, and I'll show you a new division underneath this main project area. Division 50 is communication arts. I'm going to continue to scroll. Here's 51, performing arts, 52, visual arts, and that's where we list all those groups. So we've got subgroup A, arranging flowers, subgroup B, cake decorating, and they're all listed in the project guide. I'm going to scroll, so bear with me here. Here we go. Here's group 4, photography and video. Under group 4, we kept pretty much everything that was listed before, but to make it easier to understand, we put subgroups in with a definition. So you'll see under photography, there's a subgroup A, subgroup B. They would still enroll in just the visual arts, photography, but they have options when it comes to the state fair book on where they would exhibit. Hopefully the definitions will help. So the definition for a computer enhanced photo is display of the original 4 by 6 inches and the enhanced and enlarged photo mounted and on appropriately sized display board or mat. So we tried to make it really simple with the definition. If they want to know more of the general guidelines for photography, they would go up right under the group and see the numbered expectations for their exhibits under that particular group. When you get a printed copy, or if you print it, it's going to look the format will be exactly the same from one division to the next with all the subgroups in there. It'll be really nice and easy to read, I believe. but program teams will be able to look at it sooner rather than later, because that'll get out to you probably soon. I would say this week. Is there any questions you have on 4-H Online, Project Guide, State Fair book?
I see one question from Julianne. In the Google Drive folder, should there be project sheets for each of those with the exhibitor expectations? So the project sheets, the current versions, like we mentioned earlier, they are a work in progress. And so our program planning team has taken that on. I know Monica mentioned that she has done an amazing job updating a lot of the animal ones, and she has, we've communicated about that. And so those are all on teams for our program planning team to work through. But the current versions that we have so far are on the Google Drive. It's under projects, and then there's a folder called project sheets. And now I'm not guaranteeing they're all like the most updated, but that's the most updated we have at this point. And so I appreciate y'all's patience and understanding that this is a long process. And so as they get updated, those will be revised on the Google Drive in a PDF format.
Thanks. Is that what we will also use as our standards for judging?
So I'm sharing where you can find those project sheets. If we go back to that Google Drive and look under, here, I'll go back to this one. So now we're in 4-H Youth Development, and we go to projects. And we go to project sheets. If you remember, the project guide is at the bottom of this folder. This is where our project sheets lay. And if we open that up, you're going to see all the PDFs for the project sheets.
I would say, Julianne, more so on those cards that Diane was talking about, those would more so give you direction on what the youth are judged on when things are exhibited. The projects
Thank you.
have more like curriculum on them, like different levels, like, you know, once you complete level 1, level 2, level 3, different curriculum, and how they can really learn more about that project area on that sheet.
Yeah, I'm really excited for those scorecards. What I intend to do is send those out to my kids so that they know what strong work will look like and weak work. I think that's fair for them to understand what the criteria and the rubric the judges are going to be using. So thank you, Diane, for tackling that.
Sue, can you go back to that project sheet page you just had up?
Absolutely.
And just pull up and share one of those with us? I just want to look at something.
Okay, so let's just pull up aerospace. It's at the top. We'll see what happens.
Can you make that bigger?
Maybe. How about that?
Okay. All right, I'll have to look at those because I think it would be helpful, and I'm thinking, you know, at the state fair, I don't know about at the county level, but I think it would be helpful in addition to the judging sheets to have some sort of a project sheet where they can, you know, look and say what that project's supposed to be. You know, I think that would be helpful if I were coming to judge somewhere and I was judging a project area. Something like this would be helpful for me.
So on the back, on that column, the right-hand column, that gives you ideas for exhibits for the state fair or your county fair.
I'm going to scroll up. Don't get dizzy. This one.
Right. That could help the youth decide what they wanted to exhibit.
Yeah, and that's really not what I'm thinking of. I need to mull this around in my brain a little bit more.
I think it might be good here, you know, record keeping and exhibit rubric or something.
Yes, yes.
And then they could click on that and would go right to your.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. Thanks for bringing that up, Julianne. That's a very good point. I'm going to write that down. So I know we're right at noon today, and so we've had a great conversation. I like these professional development webinars to be conversation because that's what it's all about. That's how we learn from everybody and one another. And so I really want to express my appreciation to Sue, because like this would not have happened if it was just up to the Center for 4-H staff. And so she has really taken this and driven this forward and charged it forward. And as you can see, it's very intricate and there's a lot of moving parts. And like when you change one thing, it changes something else. So I appreciate all your feedback and patience with this as we get this going. And so we didn't really realize what a big project it is, but it's been a lot to take on. And I certainly appreciate her driving this forward for us. And so is there any more final questions? Let's see. Cindy said, will the project guides be available to give to families, offices, or will it be online only? Are you talking about the project sheets, Cindy?
The
Or are you talking about
project
the
guide,
the
and
guide? We
I
don't print
print
them
mine.
here, but you could print them yourself, Cindy, if you wanted to.
Yep, that's what I do.
That's what we quit printing that a couple of years ago. And so I know we didn't print them last year either. And so if you want to print them out in your office, you could have those ready for your use to take, you know, or print them on demand when they want them. So yeah.
Megan, before we go,
I was just gonna say, I printed all mine out and gave them to my leaders. And then if the families wanted, like, I just did it for the whole family, so they would have them and stuff. So it's easy to print and get it done. So
Diane?
I just wanted to, before we go, because I really wasn't in on this at this early of a point last year. So I just want to be clear, and all of us are on the same page about the state fair book, like the process right now. So it went out to program planning teams, and they're expecting, they asked for feedback by the end of this week, right? And when that feedback is received and incorporated, then the next step would be, we'd have to send it to AgCom, correct, for them to review. And once they've reviewed it and determined everything, the formatting and all that is correct, then it's ready to send on to the state fair. Is that correct as far as the timeline goes?
Yeah, that's how it worked last year. We did not print them here.
Right.
At NDSU, they printed them and then they sent them to the counties.
Yes. So when it's completed and finished and ready to send state fair for the printing portion of it, will we have it online somewhere then where people can access it online until the print copies are ready? Or how do we do that?
Yeah, I think we did that. We did post like the PDF version on the Google Drive. And so we just wanted to go to AgCom to make sure like it's all the correct fonts and there's spacing and things like that. But the content we will pretty much have done. But yeah, I think we could do that. So you could take a look or print it out early if you need to.
Okay, so I just wanted to, so all of us are on the same page and that we are communicative with each other and kind of have a good expectation of where things are.
Can anybody help Rebecca out with the stuffed animal question? What where does stuffed animals fit into the sewing project? Any ideas on stuffed animals out there?
I think under sewing and textiles, there is a home environment, if I remember right. And so I would think possibly could go there, or else under child development.
And looks like Melanie says sewn garment, personal or home accessory. Does that help?
But I think to Annette's point too, it probably, depending on what the point of their project is, it could be incorporated as part of a child development too, I suppose.
Does that help, Rebecca? Or
good point.
Okay. All right, good points.
Who did a stuffed animal because he was learning how to use a sewing machine and he wanted to make a stuffed animal. So home decor for stuffed animals sounded really, really funny to me. So I was just wanting to make sure that there wasn't a better class for it.
I think those are some good options that our colleagues suggested, Rebecca. So I think that would be good.
I know we're over time, but can I share my screen one more time?
Sure.
Awesome. So what I wanted to do is show you where the state fair book will be. So we were at the project sheets on the projects tab or folder, which is right up here. I'm going to go back to the youth development page. And if you see state fair down here, the state fair book has been listed there and it's loading. So to get to the project guide, it's under projects. To get to the state fair book, it's listed under the state fair.
All right. Well, I really appreciate Sue hosting, helping with this webinar today. It's been great discussion. I know this is something y'all have been wanting for a while, and so I'm glad we finally got to do it. Just as a reminder, next week on Wednesday, we'll have the one about submitting proposals and getting your award applications together for NAE 4-H YDP. And just a point there, if you're not a member of the association, but you want to still help present, that's okay, because you can also be part of a team that submits it. And so as long as the person who submits the proposal is a member of the association, then you can definitely be a part of that team. So don't let that drive you away if you aren't, a member of the association right now, because we can put you on a team and we can get that going for sure. So, and thank you, Dustin, for pointing out there's an FCW call next Wednesday at 11. And so we'll adjust this meeting to 1 o'clock next week for the proposals and the award applications. And I will get that out later this afternoon. So thank you all for joining us. And I'm excited to see your faces, and happy 2023. Bye, everybody.